Okay, let's do some grammar today. We're going to be working in the grammar book, so open your book to page 261 and let's get out a highlighter and a pen or a pencil, and then you'll be ready. Okay, now that you're on page 261, you'll see that we're working with commas in a series. A series means a list of things, and we're going to look at some different types of series as we go through the rules. So now that you're ready, let's get started. The first thing I'd like you to do is to highlight Rule 20F. Use commas to separate items in a series. Now let's look at some examples of what a series constitutes. I will have hummus, comma, tahini, comma, and pita bread. So a series could be a list of words. The next example, they found locusts in the car, comma, on their porch, comma, and even in their kitchen. So a series could be a list of phrases. These are prepositional phrases. The next example, the drawings that Tina had dreamed about, comma, that she had struggled to create, comma, and that she had carefully matted were sold in a week. And so a series could be clauses. And so I want you to notice that commas go between each item in the series and before the conjunction and. And so let's look at a few more examples here. Okay, number 1. If all items in a series are joined by and or, do not use commas to separate them. Example, the Bronco kicked and bucked and reared. This is called polysyndeton when the word and connects each item in the series. It's a really unique way of writing a sentence. And so this is the rule. Basically, you don't need commas if the and is there, connecting each of the items. All right, let's look at number 2. Semicolons usually separate independent clauses in a series. Commas may separate short independent clauses, however. Now, when we look at these examples, that'll make sense. First example, we arrived well before dawn. We is the subject, arrived is the predicate, so that whole clause there is independent. It's a complete sentence, and then it's separated with a semicolon. The next part, we scrubbed the walls and ceilings. Now, this is also an independent clause. We is the subject, scrubbed is the predicate, and then there's a semicolon. And we painted the rooms a pale blue. This is the last independent clause. We, subject, painted, predicate. So you can see that when there's a series of independent clauses, all complete sentences, you can separate them with semicolons. Now, the next example shows 3 short independent clauses. Let me read those for you. Pardon me. We arrived, comma, we cleaned, comma, and we painted. We is the subject, arrived is a predicate. We is the subject, cleaned is a predicate, and we is a subject, and painted is a predicate. And when they're that short, you can separate those with commas. Okay, now let's do Rule 20G. Use commas to separate 2 or more adjectives preceding a noun. Example, this sari is a fine, comma, beautiful silk. Now I want you to notice there's no comma between beautiful and silk, between the last adjective and the noun. Okay, let's look at the next part. When the last adjective in a series is thought of as a part of the noun, the comma before the adjective is omitted. Compound nouns like orange juice and lunchbox are considered single units, even though orange is describing juice and even though lunch is describing box. It's now, those have just commonly now they're considered just a compound noun. Okay, that's just the way it is. For example, my father grabbed his steel lunchbox. Now, technically, there could be a comma between steel and lunch because they're both adjectives describing box, but now that we've accepted that lunchbox is a compound noun, really just steel is the adjective before the compound noun lunchbox. Okay, a good way to to try this out is by, let's read the note. Try inserting and between the adjectives in a series. If and fits sensibly, use a comma. For example, fine and beautiful sounds sensible. So a comma is used. And cannot be logically inserted in steel lunchbox, however. So if you said steel and lunchbox, that would sound awkward. So you know a comma is not used. Now it's your turn to practice. Let's look at exercise 3, proofreading sentences for the correct use of commas. Add commas where needed in the following sentences. On the line before each sentence, write a capital C if the sentence is already correct and you do not need to add any commas. Let's look at the example. We rode through forests, comma, up mountains, comma, and across a desert. Well, they've already inserted all the commas correctly, so I'm going to put a C there. Let's look at number 1 together. French, Spanish, and German will be offered next year. Now on this one, it wasn't originally correct. I had to add the comma after Spanish in the list, French, Spanish, and German. So I just added the punctuation. What I'd like you to do is do the remaining ones on the next page, page 262. I want you to do number 2 through 20, and then pause the video and start the video back up again when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, now I need you to check your answers and number 2 through 20. Make any corrections as needed. Pay attention and learn these rules because they will be on the daily language and the daily language quiz. Okay, now you know how to use commas in a series, and we will definitely be using these in daily language and in our writing, and they definitely also will be on the quiz. So make sure that you review over these. If you have any questions, you can also come and ask me. Thank you for working so hard.